Hello guys, I hope you are doing good. Welcome to this new video. Today, through this video, I'll try to answer to one of the most common question that many of us have, which is what is the major difference between a service-based and a product-based organization on the type of work that has been done there. So in my 7 years of professional careers, I've started my journey through a service-based organization. I've worked for 4 years in the service-based organization, and then later I switched to the product-based. So obviously, one of the major difference between them is the amount of pay that we get, and in the product-based organization, we really get paid well. So it's not like that service based organization don't pay, they do pay well except for the all other streams that we have in the market, but generally the pay is very less at the entry level compared to what an entry level folk is paid in product based. So that's where the major difference is seen. But we'll not look at the difference between both types of organization based on the pay, because we all know that the pay is the pay scale is very imbalanced between them. But other than pay, I'll try to talk about the type of work that I have done in each of the organization, and then I leave it up to you to decide which one is better in the type of work or in the job satisfaction. So there is a misconception that in the service based organization we get to work on all the legacy codes and we get to work on all the outdated things, and in the product based organization we work on the core engineering and things that with the latest tech and all the open source things. So it's not completely true. We do get to work on the best things in both the organization. So in my career in both the organizations, I have worked on very good projects. I have used the latest tech in each of them, and I'm completely I'm satisfied by the work I have done there. So let's start going through each of the organization that I've worked on from the beginning, and then so that you can make a decision on the type of work that has been done in different types of organizations. So for the start, here is the LinkedIn profile. I have opened my LinkedIn profile, and I started working back to December 2015. This was my first job. So I've joined iConsulting as a junior web developer. Now, this is this was my first job. It was a service based startup. So not a completely service based, it was product come service based startup, but majority of work that I've done over here is more of a service providing. And then I've also done created or worked on one or two projects, one or two products also. So we'll talk about now. This was my first organization, and the company was also starting, so they were little crunched on funds and I was looking for a job, so someone should give me entry. So we both satisfied our needs, and then we had a deal that they gave me a job, and they paid me very less, but I was satisfied that I'm getting a job. I don't I was not hungry for money at back then. I was only looking for entry that I should get a door open for me into the tech world, and from there I can begin my journey. So the very first project that I've worked on over here is this vrcity.com. So on the very first day, the founder told me that he opened this website on the browser and he told me that you have to replicate this. Now if you see this word falling effect, right? So on my very first day I was so confused, like how would I fall these words through HTML and CSS, and he told me that this is happening only through CSS. Now in the college I had worked on a small PHP project that had get me hired. It was a e-commerce site, but I was not aware about what I have to do over here, so I was completely blank. And see, this is the first part. So this is the landing page of the application. If I walk you through each of this page, you will see that this website is so CSS or animation heavy, and it took me around 1.5 and 2 months to replicate this, but I was able to do that. So see, if I go to the about page, you see this application was so, it has so many animations and then slidings, and all these pages, all these animations, I was not aware. I mean, I was a fresher. There was no one to guide me. I was the only employee working over there, and he asked me to create this. And without any guidance, I had created this in HTML, CSS, and using the jQuery. So see this complete application, and we had published this. So he used this replica as his website's, you know, main website. But later on, they, I think, they found out, and then they add a plagiarism to us, so we had to remove this. But this was the very first project that I have worked on, and if you see the quality of work, right, the quality of work was top notch, but the code I have written was so bad. And see, all this, I had to handle all this animation. So through my first job, I learned so much about the CSS animation, the perspective, the dropping effect, all this, the timings were, it was such an important factor for animation. So I'd learn all this. And the best part was we had to create it for the cross browser. So I created the application of for the Chrome, and it was, it was not working in Safari. So I had to fix all those things. So it was a great learning for me. Now this is one of the best project I've done in my life. So the learning experience was so great over here. So this I've done in HTML, CSS, and jQuery, not JavaScript. I was not aware about JavaScript. jQuery was so simple, so I started using that only. And then came my second project. So second project was on Magento. Magento is a CMS. It's a open source CMS written in PHP that we can use to create a e-commerce site. So my second project was we had to migrate a website called 360fly.com. It was written in Django Flask. We had to migrate that to Magento. So that was my second job. Now in that, my only part was to create the theme. So the look and feel in the Magento, and all the functionality was handled by someone else. So it was also a great experience for me, because Magento was a new software for me. I was not aware what is this, but I got to explore this, and then I've done the migration. We successfully done the migration before the Black Friday sale. We launched the application, and they had a good revenue. So the application, after the migration, the application was super fast, so the sale boosted. So that was my second project I have worked on. The third project I had worked on was a clone of Instagram. So it was called I'm Really There. So it was basically for the street artists of the New York. We had to basically clone the complete Instagram, and then we had to create a full-fledged application on that. So this was one of the major application in the early careers, in my early careers. So what we decided is, so this is the architecture. Now this architecture, this has been created by the founder of the company I was working for. So if you see, we had used WordPress as a CMS. So as a headless CMS, basically, in the WordPress we used to create the contents, and then that after creating the content, that data was getting stored in Elasticsearch. So we were persisting that in the WordPress, and also we are parallelly making an entry in the Elasticsearch, so that we can do the fast read operation through Elasticsearch. And then through Elasticsearch, I used to read the data, and I had created a React application where I was showing the UI. And then there was this Kibana to which is the Elasticsearch dashboard to monitor the whole analytics. I mean, how many read operations is happening in the Elasticsearch, failure rate, query search, all those things. So this is the proposed architecture that the founder has created, and this was my first first project, a full-fledged project. And so we were creating the tech spec. We had done this architectural flow, and then we started the development. Now if you see, so my first job, I did jQuery. After that, parallelly I was doing Magento, and then literally they pulled me to do the React. So if you see, the React version was 15.4.2. It was before React 16. Now I did not had any knowledge of JavaScript. He told me that you get a time of 10 days, you have to learn React and you have to do the work. So it was very fast paced environment. I did not get an opportunity, I cannot complain over there because it was my first job. If I complain, I'll get, laid off. So I just keep on trying things. I was failing miserably. It was very hard time, but I had to keep doing this. So I stayed there, and then definitely we created this project, though the project did not go live for some reason, but we do worked on this. And then the fourth and the final project in the organization came, which is it was a e-commerce site. So there was an alternative for Magento called Silvana was a new framework that was emerging as a competition to Magento. So we use Silvana to create the complete dashboard, the backend part of the CMS, where we used to create the whole product ecosystem, and the APIs were written in Silvana, and the front end was a React native application. So where the Android app was being created. So in that app, we used to fetch the APIs from the Silvana, and then we created a full page application. So these were the first four projects that I have worked in my first organization, and the tenure for the first organization was 1.5 years. It was a great learning experience. I am still very, I feel very blessed that I have started my journey through this organization, because initially it was feeling like, what type of work we are doing. But now if I look back, uh, I've learned so many things, and it get me into the shape that if we have to be in tech, we have to be fast learning, we have to adapt fast. Otherwise, someone else will take your place and you'll replace you. So that's how I started. Now this was my very first organization. It was a service based organization. Then later I switched from there. I've joined Orion. So Orion was again a service based organization. I stayed here for 2 years and 3 months, and here I only worked on two projects. The first project was, there was a dictionary called thomasnet. So thomasnet is a 100-old-year dictionary where people would come, and they would ask to create a website. Now thomasnet used to export those service to us, and they asked to so they used to provide all the queries that their clients had, and we used to create a website for them and then give it back. So that was the first part that I was working on. So we created around 10 to 15 websites in PHP, and then we given them back. Then came the second part, so which was the most interesting. So after this thomasnet, there was a gap, so I was on bench for 3 months because there was no work. They were looking for a suitable role for me. So this happens very much in service based organization, where they are looking for the resource allocation, and for that period of time you can be on a bench. So when I was on bench, I started learning JavaScript, because after leaving ahi, uh, I thought that I want to stick to front end side more than the back end side. Though I was aware about the PHP, WordPress, and all those things, but I decided to stick with the JavaScript. So I started exploring that, and then came the second project. So the second project was, I had to create a form generation. So basically, there was this Salesforce application which had n number of fields, and I had to map those n number of fields. So I had to create a JSON structure from that fields, and then through this JSON structure I had to create a complete web application in JavaScript. Now this JSON structure can be dynamic, so every time Salesforce field change, the JSON structure will change, and the structure should be dynamically generated, and it will be connected to the Salesforce. So this was my second project that I had worked on. Now see, if you see, for service based organization, this was the project I worked from scratch. I have written the complete generation library in the core JavaScript. It was a 9 months or 1 year long project I had worked on. And you see, so this is the type of learning that I had received in service based. Now, sorry, I'm not sure about other people's, but I find it really, I think I'm really blessed that I've got an opportunity to work on these types of things. So after that, because I worked on this library, I updated that in my resume, and when I started to look for the next change, my resume got shortlisted in the upgrad.com and they hired me. So they hired me for a similar job. So because upgrad was a edtech, right, so they wanted to create a dynamic form generation which would create a question set from the JSON. So that's what they had hired me for. We created that, and I did that in React.js. So I was handling one part. Now when I switched to upgrade, it was a product based organization, right? So it was, the way of working was a little bit different from the service based organizations. It was quite smooth and people were more relaxed. We don't had to, answer anyone. There was one meeting in the morning, and after that we had to just get our work done. So the work cultural shift was a little bit more in the product based, but it was quite smooth. So I had worked on that project, and then fortunately came the second project. So the second project was uh, upgrade was real upgrade for their core feature. They were using Zoom, so premium Zoom, where for the students to join, they used to send the Zoom link, and then the students would join the Zoom link. Now many folks were facing lots of issue because they used to use their company's laptops, and Zoom were restricted in that. So the iteration rate was very high for the students. They don't join lectures, their learning was getting affected. So to solve that, what we did is we created a full-fledged application in React using the Agora video call service. So it was basically, in simple terms, a clone of Google Meet, but where 150 folks can join at a time, and along with the teacher and students there will be other supports like the mentors. And in that application, along with the video call service, there was a question answer polling services. So this was the second project that we had worked on. So I had created this. Now the my role was only creating the video call service. All other features were developed as a widget and it was injected. So that too was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed working on the project. So this was one of the project, where the actual learning of React happened for me. So I explored the React in depth because I had to handle multiple streams. So handling stream was not an easy task, but fortunately I was able to pull that out and the project was live. Now I left Upgrad in 9 months. If you see, that's because where I stay and where the Upgrad office is in the Mumbai, it used to take me around 2 hours to reach and then 2 hours to get back. So 4 hours of traveling daily. So I was getting frustrated every day due to the traveling, and so I decided to leave that because they were, and they did not had a policy of work from home back then. So I joined Fractal. Now Fractal is an analytics company. Again, Fractal is in a service domain. So if you see, the first and second was service based, third was product based, and again Fractal is also a service based organization, but it's into data analytics. Now Fractal, back then, before pandemic, it has a policy of work from anywhere. So I did not had to go to the office. That's why I joined them. Now in the Fractal, the first project I had worked on was a search engine. So basically customer queries were there, around 5000 queries. It was for the telnet, and we had to create a simple React application where we can filter the queries. So we decided that for the backend we'll use OpenSearch, which is an alternative to the Elasticsearch. OpenSearch is a managed services available in AWS. So OpenSearch will be used, and where we'll make these 5000 entries, and then we'll create a simple search engine, small search engine in React, where user can search for the queries, and then once the query is there, they can go through that. So for example, let's say you have some problem in your Samsung iPhone or Samsung phones, or not iPhone, Samsung phone. So you type the term that Samsung S22 battery not working. So the term Samsung S22 battery not working. So we used to get that. We used to search in the open search, and while searching we used to do all types of different search metrics. Like for example, the phone term will be matched with the mobile term as well, with the desktop term as well. So there were many synonyms. So I have created the front end application, as well as I was involved in the back end for the querying the open search. So it was the first application. Again, it was developed from the scratch. So quite interesting. And the second project was I had to create a forecast engine. So the backend for that was in Spring Boot. The tech stack that we had, that was already decided. I did not get an opportunity to ask for that. And the front end was in React. So basically, we were working for Unilever as a client. So let's say Unilever has a historical data of Tide or Rin, that in the past 3 years they were able to sell the X amount. So in the next year, how much production should they do to maximize the revenue and minimize the loss. So based on the historical data, the data scientists used to run an engine, and then they used to come out with the predictions. And my part was only to fetch the data, our basic CRUD operation through the Spring, and then provide the APIs to the front end application, and then show that on the front end. So both front end and back end I used to handle. Again, it was created from the scratch, and it was one of the good project that I have worked on. So I would not say it was bad. And also we had done an SSO integration with Azure AD, because the Unilever works completely on the Windows enterprises. So we did the integration for them. So all in all, good application that I've worked on. So again, see, this was a service-based organization, and here also the project quality were quite good. I did not get to work on any of the legacy code. And then right now I'm working in Razorpay. Now in the Razorpay also, we are creating a product. That product is being used by different banks. So when the product is created and when a new bank is onboarded, we have to provide service to the bank, and we have to set up that product on their premises to make it working with their data, because there are lots of data compliances. So basically the product is developed by us, but is hosted and deployed on the bank's premises. So we provide service to them. So if you see, Razorpay is a product-based organization, and yes, we have created a product, but we do provide service to the different banks. So again, you can call it as a product-based or a service-based application. It's up to you. So now if you see, service-based, service-based, product-based, service-based, product-based. But in all of the five, I got to work on a good application. I've created those applications from the scratch. The learning was excellent, though there were ups and downs in between. But you don't have to worry so much about the type of organization you are choosing. You see the work, and many times what happens is, right, people get frustrated. So from my experience, if you see, right, even in the service based organization, I got to work on the open source things, I got to work on the latest stack, I want to work on build some cool stuffs. And the same in the product based organization. The only difference that I see is, in the service based organization, you are considered as a resource, not as a teamwork. So if you can pull something out of your own, right, if you can work on the different tech stacks, they will consider you as a single resource, and they will put you as a single resource in the project. So what happens is, you are writing the code and you are 100% sure that my code is working. There is no one else to review your code. So that drawback that I see in the service based organization. Whereas in the product based organization, there is a structure. So it doesn't matter what project you are working on, if there is no peers around you, your senior folks will always review your code before it is getting merged in the code base. Because when you leave the organization and someone else joins or replaces you, right, he or she should be able to understand the complete code base. So in service based organization, the work is very fast paced. They are only interested in getting the job done, and it's up to you that you make sure that whatever you are writing is up to the market level and up to the standards. But in the product based, it is already streamlined. So many product based organizations which are just starting up, right, they also do very fast pace of work, but over the time they try to streamline things as much as possible. Now, so if you see from my experience, right, in both the service based and product based, I don't see much of the problem. I got to work on good projects and my learning was quite well. So similarly, when you join the organization, right, if you are joining as a software engineer and not for any different role, you will get to learn lots of things. So don't worry so much about what the project I'll get to work on. And even if you are bench, so I was on bench for around 3 to 4 months in the uh, Orion, and I utilized that time to learn something new. So there are times in service based organization where the resource shuffling happens, so you get a free buffer period or you are on bench. But see, the good thing is when you get buffer, you are on bench on a service based organization. But in the product based organization, the product you are working on, if that product get disbanded, right, you are vulnerable. So if no other team is willing to hire you, then you are vulnerable to layoffs. So that's a major problem in the product based organization, until and unless your skill set matches with the other teams. For example, let's say in the Google you are hired for creating or working on an embedded application. Now that application is not working and the Google has decided to disband that. So if your skill set is not matching with any of the other products that is being in the continuous development, you are vulnerable to the layoffs. So that's the one major drawback in the product based organization. Similarly, there are drawbacks in the service based organizations also. And yes, pay difference is very huge. But if you are struggling to land your first job, I would advise that you should not look at the pay. You should get started with whatever opportunity you are getting in. And if service based organization is willing to hire you, so you do join that. Assume that for the first initial year, 1 to 3 years, you are learning, and after that you will start earning. Your career is of a span of 30 years. It's not going to end in 10 years. So initial years are very crucial in learning. It develops your mindset. You get familiar with the corporate structure, the way corporate works. And then once you get familiar, and if you are confident about your skills, you continuously keep learning, then you can move to a product based organization. So that's all. I hope you have learned something new. Also, if you are looking for a roadmap to learn front end development, and you are looking for the project's idea for the front end development, uh, I already created videos on those, so you can go and watch them. Thank you for your time.